Hi, students. So before we jump right into today's lesson, which is going to be Act 4 of Romeo and Juliet, we finished Act 3 last week, so we're going to do Act 4 this week and Act 5, so that will finish the entire play. So that's exciting, but before we do that, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here with how much time, or how little time, we could say, we have left together till the end of the year. So today is Monday, May 11th. We see that we have a full week of school this week from the 11th to the 15th. This following week is going to be our next academic week. So you have this academic week and you have next academic week, the 25th to the 29th, as long as we still have Memorial Day off, which is a national holiday. So I would assume we still have Memorial Day off. We'll have a 4-day week this week. So that means that in May, we have 9 days together left. And then we have June. In June this is going to be your shop week. And so this means this is going to be your academic week. And so that means that we have 5 days in June together, because this following week right here is your last week of school and it's a shop week. So the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, you'll spend in shop. 19th, you don't have school. And aside from that, in total, for the whole rest of this school year, you will have 14 academic days left, which is awesome. What we're going to do with the rest of our academic days is going to be finish Romeo and Juliet, writing some sort of essay on Romeo and Juliet, and then spending the rest of the days kind of doing more flexible, maybe fun activities to end the school year. Just making sure we're all on the same page here, seeing how little time we have if we need to bring our grades up, seeing how much time we still have left together if you need that reminder too. So just bear in mind you only have a couple weeks left to get in grades, to get in assignments, and make sure that you're doing everything you need to do to graduate to the next grade level. Any questions about this, let me know, but I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page here. So now transitioning. Last week we finished Act 3 of Romeo and Juliet. This week we're finishing Act 4 and 5 of Romeo and Juliet. Today we're going to do half of Act 4. Tomorrow we're going to finish Act 4, and then the following 2 days we'll be finishing the play itself with Act 5. So we'll jump right into it. Let's begin. Act 4, Scene 1. You may remember how at the end of Act 3, so we'll kind of recap it, Juliet recently has gotten engaged to Paris, kind of without her consent. She's not thrilled about it. The nurse gave her the advice, you know what, you should just be happy about that and marry Paris in the end. And some of you in your responses were saying, yeah, that's practical advice. She might as well just do that. And the rest of you were like, absolutely not. She should not have to. Romeo's her one true love, right? So interesting there. And the scene itself, Scene 5 of Act 3 ended. The last thing that we talked about was with Juliet saying, okay, I'm going to go to Friar Lawrence's cell now. We know that Friar Lawrence has been a big help to Romeo and Juliet in the past, and so we're going to see Juliet kind of begging Friar Lawrence for some help and guidance on this issue as well. So the entirety of Act 4, Scene 1 takes place in Friar Lawrence's cell. That's where he is. That's where he lives. And it begins with Friar Lawrence in Paris discussing the marriage. So Paris has come over. He's telling Friar Lawrence about his plans. And how do you think Friar Lawrence feels hearing about the new marriage that's in the works? So he's kind of hesitant. He's like, oh, does Juliet seem keen on this? And does this seem like something that you should do? And Paris is all for it. He thinks that Juliet's all for it. Paris is acting kind of cocky about it, thinks, yeah, of course Juliet wants to marry me. But Friar Lawrence is certainly a little skeptical about it. So while they're talking, Juliet walks in. Paris is very excited to see her, but Juliet is not very excited to see Paris. Does she treat Paris rudely, considering his part in this, is my question to you. So she's very cold to him. He's like, oh, my dear love, can you not wait to get married to me? And she's just kind of cold and aloof to him and is like, no, without ever kind of coming out and saying no. So as Paris leaves the scene, she says, I gotta talk to Friar Lawrence about something in private, like, would you mind leaving us be? And he leaves her with a kiss. And Juliet gets very dramatic when he leaves, and she holds a knife to herself, again, kind of threatening this death to Friar Lawrence. And Friar Lawrence has had enough of these near-death experiences with teenagers, so he decides to come up with a plan to help Romeo and help Juliet and get them out of this situation that they found themselves in. And here's his plan. So Every week, I do want to show you all Shakespearean text. I do want to make sure that we're reading it together, we're annotating it, we're understanding it to still get that English perspective in your daily lives. So we'll read Friar Lawrence's plan. It's kind of lengthy, and then we'll go through it together, slowly comb through it, make sure we're all on the same page with what he's saying and what he means. We're going to practice the skill of continuing to read Shakespearean language together, and then I'm going to have you all practice the skill alone on one of the assignments. So I'll explain in more detail what that is, but for now, let's read this together, let's annotate it together, make sure we understand Friar Lawrence's plan for Romeo and Juliet, and then we'll go on. Hold then, says Friar Lawrence. Go home, be merry, give consent to marry Paris. Wednesday is tomorrow. Tomorrow night, look that thou lie alone. Let not the nurse lie with thee in thy chamber. Holding out a vial. Take thou this vial, being then in bed, and this distilling liquor drink thou off, when presently through all thy veins shall run a cold and drowsy humor, for no pulse shall keep its native progress, but surcease. No warmth, no breath shall testify thou livest. The roses in thy lips and cheeks shall fade to paly ashes, thy eyes as window fall like death when he shuts up the day of life. Each part deprived of supple government shall stiff and stark and cold appear like death. And in this borrowed likeness of shrunken death thou shalt continue 42 hours, and then awake as from a pleasant sleep. Now when the bridegroom in the morning comes to rouse thee from thy bed, there art thou dead. Then, as the manner of our country is, in thy best robes uncovered on the bier, thou shalt be borne to that same ancient vault where all the kindred of the Capulets lie. In the meantime, against thou shalt awake, shall Romeo by my letters know our drift, and hither shall he come, and he I will watch thy waking. In that very night shall Romeo bear thee hence to Mantua, and this shall free thee from this present shame, if no inconstant toy nor womanish fear abate thy valor in the acting it. All right, now let's break down Friar Lawrence's speech and make sure we're all on the same page with what his plan for Romeo and Juliet is. So he said, hold then, go home, be merry, give consent to marry Paris. So he's talking to Juliet and he says, go home, be merry, leave, be happy, and give consent to marrying Paris. So say yes to marrying Paris. He says, tomorrow is Wednesday. Today's Tuesday. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Tomorrow night, look that thou lie alone. So we know that the wedding is going to be on Thursday. Today's Tuesday, Wednesday's tomorrow. So he says Wednesday night, the night before his wedding, make sure that you're alone that night. Do not let the nurse lie with thee in thy chamber. Make sure that the nurse isn't there and isn't sleeping in her room that night. Usually the nurses would make sure that the ladies didn't need anything. Holding out a vial is a stage direction. So he hands Juliet the vial, a vial of something. And he says, take thou this vial, being then in bed. So take this vial when you're in bed, and a vial is a little glass container used for holding a liquid. And this distilling liquor, drink thou off. Drink the liquid, the liquor, inside this vial. When presently through all thy veins shall run, the liquid will run through your veins in a cold and drowsy humor, for no pulse shall keep its native progress, but surcease. So he says, once you drink the stuff in this glass vial, you're going to start feeling cold and sleepy. You're not going to have any pulse. In fact, your pulse will stop after you drink this potion. There's no warmth, no breath shall testify that thou livest. You'll be cold, you won't be breathing, you will look dead. The roses in thy lips and cheeks shall fade, so you'll lose all the color in your face to paly ashes. You'll look pale and ashy. Thy eyes as windows fall like death when he shuts up the day of life. So you're going to look dead after you take this. When you take this, your pulse will go so thin that you won't even be able to feel it. All the color will drain from your face. You'll be cold like you're dead. Each part deprived of supple government, so you can no longer move supplely or flexibly. He says, shall stiff and stark and cold appear like death. So it's like when you die and rigor mortis sets in, that's when your body gets really stiff from all of your muscles stiffening and from lack of blood flow. So you will look dead. And in this borrowed likeness of shrunk death, so in this state, looking dead, thou shalt continue 42 hours. You will remain like this. It'll happen for 42 hours long, and then awake as if from a pleasant sleep. So after 42 hours of basically being in this death-like state, this comatose state, then you'll just wake up like normal. Now he says, when the bridegroom in the morning comes, so you take this Wednesday night, the day before your wedding, the bridegroom of Paris, he'll come in the morning to rouse thee from thy bed. So when he comes, there art thou dead. When Paris comes that Thursday, because it's still within that 42-hour period, you'll look dead to him. Then, as manner of our country is, then like our country's tradition dictates, in thy best robes, uncovered on the bier, so dressed up and all nice, wearing your finest in your coffin. They think you're dead. They're going to bury you according to the customs of our society. Thou shalt be born in the same ancient vault where all the kindred of the Capulets lie. So he's saying that Juliet, it's not this tradition like we're used to, where we're buried underground, where we kind of celebrate the dead in a graveyard. Remember in the Cask of Amontillado when Montresor and Fortunato went down into the family vaults, and they were catacombs. So they're like these tombs and tunnels where the dead are just laid out in the middle of them. That's where Juliet's going to be. So she's not going to be buried alive. She's going to be in a tomb, in a vault, like the catacombs of the Cask of Amontillado. And it says it's the Capulet family vaults. What Capulet has recently died who will be in there? Whose corpse is she going to be sharing this vault with? Kind of interesting there. Tybalt, right? In the meantime, so while you're being buried because you look dead, because you took this potion that made you look dead, in the meantime, against thou shalt awake, shall Romeo by my letters know our drift. So meanwhile, all that's happening, you'll be passed out, and I'll write and tell Romeo about what our plans are. And hither shall he come. He'll come to your vaults, and he and I will watch thy waking in that very night. So we will watch you as you awaken. Shall Romeo bear thee hence to Mantua? So we'll get you in the vaults. We'll make sure you're awake. Then Romeo will take you to Mantua with him. And this shall free thee from this present shame. So you'll be free of the shame of having to marry someone else. If no, in constant toy nor womanish fear, abate thy valor in the acting it. So as long as you're not too scared, as long as you don't have womanish fear, as long as you can go through with this, then this should work, says the friar. So the friar gives his idea for what Juliet should do, and Juliet is all for it. She's like, yes, absolutely, this sounds great, thank you, friar. Questions: does she put too much trust into the friar? Could he have any not well-meaning intentions about helping her out with this, or is he kind of a good-hearted man? So how can she know his intentions are pure, I guess, when he gives her this vial of what he says is kind of like poison, right? Something interesting, I looked this up because my students have asked me in the past what this mix could be that makes you look dead for a couple days, put you in this comatose state where you don't have a pulse, or have a pulse so faint that people can't even feel it. So we might remember Friar Lawrence from the beginning. He was an apothecary, and we talked about this. He dealt with like herbs and drugs. He was like a medicine man in this society, so he knew like natural remedies to heal things or to kill things, I suppose. So looking it up, it was said that it could be nightshade, from the Latin name Atropa belladonna, a plant native to Europe. They were thinking that that could be what was in it, because I guess something even as small as a berry could kill a small child. So they were thinking that if he put the contents of nightshade into this potion, perhaps it could make her in like a coma state or something like that, that would replicate death. But they don't know. They really don't what Shakespeare was thinking here. So kind of just interesting facts. The friar promises to send a friar to Mantua. So this is going back to what the actual story is. So Juliet eagerly approves of this plan. She's like, yes, absolutely. And the friar goes, okay, I'll send my friar friend to Mantua. Who's there? Romeo, right? To pass on word of this plan to Romeo. So he goes, all right, I will make sure that Romeo hears about this. Everything's going to be all right. And that's that. Juliet says, great. She's going to return home, and the friar thinks that everything is solved, right? Everything's perfect. In your opinion, is this a good idea? Is this what could be the best case scenario of all of this? Could things end really well from this, or what could go wrong from this plan? What are some of the things that could potentially be bad about this? So an interesting scene here, and then we'll just do scene 2 for today, and then we'll save 3 through 5 for tomorrow. So Act 4, Scene 2, we're back at the Capulet house now. Everyone there, Mr. Capulet, Mrs. Capulet, they're all busy writing guest lists, preparing serving men, getting ready for the wedding. Juliet comes back looking really happy from Friar Lawrence's cell, and her dad's like, oh, you look happy. What's up? What's that about? And she says, so we're going to do something different here. I'm going to read the Shakespearean text. It's very short, and your job for today will be decoding this text the way that we've been doing it together on these slides. So this will be as part of your assignment for today, which I will explain. But here it says, I have learned me to repent the sin of disobedient opposition, says Juliet. This is why she's happy. She's learned to repent the sin of disobedient opposition to you and your behests, and I am enjoined by holy Lawrence to fall prostrate here. And she kneels, to beg your pardon. Pardon, I beseech you. Henceforth, I am ever ruled by you, says Juliet to her dad. So what does that mean? It's up to you to determine. But hearing this, Mr. Capulet is thrilled. He goes, great, Juliet wants to marry Paris now. She's going to do what I say. Awesome. And he pushes up the wedding to tomorrow. So he goes, you know what? We said we couldn't plan a wedding in 3 days, but we can plan it in 2. So he says the wedding will be tomorrow, which means that Friar Lawrence's plan is going to have to be pushed up a day, right? So he said, take this vial on Wednesday night. So on Thursday, people think that you're dead for your wedding day. So now Juliet's going to have to take this vial tonight because her wedding day is tomorrow. He says, all right, send word to Paris, send word to Friar Lawrence. This is happening, and it's happening tomorrow. He just kind of assumes that everyone's going to be okay with it. And spoiler, they are. Paris can't wait, right? Juliet happily goes away because she has her plan in place, and she's like, whatever, we can modify it, right? And Mrs. Capulet, though, is concerned they will not have enough time to plan the whole wedding. So it's interesting to see who steps forward at this time in the play. He says, I'll play the housewife. I'll figure everything out. I'll make sure we have the food we need. I'll make sure all the people are involved, right? So he says, we can make this work. It can be tomorrow. My question for you just might be, why might Mr. Capulet be so eager to help to marry the two of them? What could it be? Is he guilty over forcing Juliet to marry Paris in the first place, and he wants to make it up to her? Or does he feel bad for his wife? Or is this like a big status thing for him? Or is he trying to distract himself from his nephew dying, right? Tybalt, because remember, that just happened like a day or two ago. And is it any wonder that Romeo and Juliet got married so quickly with these as their role models, with their father being like, yep, we can get you married tomorrow, right? No big deal. And that's kind of what Romeo and Juliet did too. So we have that kind of society to look at and think about. So let's look at, because all I wanted to do was just scenes 1 and 2 of Act 4 today. We'll finish 3 through 5 tomorrow. We're going to look at what the assignment is for today. Very typical format. We're going to be opening a Google Forms, and we're going to be completing the Google form. All right, so let's look at what we're looking for today. Monday, May 11th assignment. That's today. What's your name? Just so you can get credit for today. Do you think that Juliet treats Paris rudely in Friar Lawrence's cell? Why or why not? So should she have kind of given him the cold shoulder? Should she not have kind of humored him or indulged him? This isn't really Paris's fault, right? I mean, he's maybe a little conceited that he thinks that Juliet loves him just because of who he is as a person. But, does he deserve that treatment? Just an opinion question. I know you didn't get a ton of details about it, but just what do you think? Do you think that Juliet puts too much trust into the friar? How can she know that his intentions are pure? Or has he proved himself enough that it's all right, in your opinion, to trust him? Explain your answer, 2 or 3 full sentences. Do you think Friar Lawrence's plan is a good idea? Why or why not? All right, so 1, 2 full sentences. What do you think is the best case scenario in Friar Lawrence's plan? And then what could go wrong in Friar Lawrence's plan? So what could be the best thing that could come? of if the plan works, and then what could be the worst thing that could come out of if his plan doesn't work. And remember, I told you I want you to try some annotating and reading and understanding of Shakespearean text yourself. So here, let's look at this. I want you to reread the set of lines that I read to you on the PowerPoint during scene 2. I have learned me to repent the sin of disobedient opposition. To you and your behests I am enjoined by holy Lawrence to fall prostrate here to beg your pardon. Pardon, I beseech you. Henceforth I am ever ruled by you. All right, so once you reread it, you gave me a check. Yep, I reread it. And I want you to attempt to annotate this, putting it in modern day language, modeled like I've been doing for the past few days. You may have to look up some words that you don't know along the way to make sense of them. That's okay. And don't worry if this is not perfect. I just want you to try and do your best on it. It's hard to look and interpret Shakespearean language, which is why I want us to practice the skill of trying to analyze English and literature based on context clues or based on kind of looking up words that are unknown. You can do this. It shouldn't be too difficult to look at it line by line. Just do your best. I have learned me to repent the sin. What could Juliet mean by that? Of disobedient opposition to you and your behests, and am enjoined by holy Lawrence to fall prostrate here to beg your pardon. Pardon, I beseech you. Henceforth I am ever ruled by you. So what do you think each of these lines means in kind of modern day language? If you had to decode it, what could it mean? And I did have to make a little adjustment here. The set of lines is not from Mr. Capulet. It is to Mr. Capulet, but I just changed it here from Juliet to Mr. Capulet. So these are spoken by Juliet, said to her father, and you'll see that here. One last question. Why do you think Mr. Capulet is getting so involved in this wedding? It's an opinion question. What, in your opinion, could make him so eager to help these two young lovers, quote unquote, of Paris and Juliet? Explain your answer. So, do you think he sees himself in them? Does he take pity on them? Is he, trying to live through them? Is he grieving over Tybalt and this is his distraction? What do you think? Whatever you think, this is an opinion. And finally, I acknowledge that I will receive a hard copy of today's notes via email tomorrow. So I will send the notes tomorrow because we have not yet done scenes 3 through 5 and they're on the same PowerPoint. So if I have any questions, comments, concerns about today's material or any material, you know that you can reach out to me. If you got it, you got it. And you're done for the day. So hope you all have a nice day. If anybody has any questions, let me know. You know where to find this assignment, and any problems, talk to me. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.